Shalom, everyone, and we are learning today about Parashat VaYera, the book of Genesis, chapter 18, verse 1. וירא אליו אדוני באלוני ממרא, והוא יושב פתח האוהל כחום היום. And Hashem, God, has been seen to him in Elonei Mamre, and he's sitting in front of the tent in the heat of the day. Just about all of these words, each word has so much, and the issue is very simple. We are in an era that is very, very hectic. A lot of people experience pressure, uncertainty, uh, and all kinds of a spectrum of emotions that go together with uncertainty, pressure, uh, misunderstanding, fear, and anxiety. If you're feeling like this is very common, especially this week, but it's being terribly amplified by what humanity is going through all around us. And as I said a few times already in the past, we are already in what will be defined later in history. We're in the beginning of World War III. Uh, why, why do events at that scale happen? And the answer is very simple. And we get the answer inside today's Zohar. So we're talking here on the simple story of the Parashah, chapter 18, verse 1. The previous Parashah ends with Abraham going through circumcision. It's the first time somebody circumcises himself or somebody goes through a circumcision as a ritual that is basically called Brit, which means a covenant. We have here a human being going through a process that is physically imprinting the symbol of the covenant in the human body. And that's by removing the foreskin. Abraham is doing that, and he is 99 years old when it's happening. And the question was, why didn't Abraham get that idea earlier in his life? Why did he wait till the age of 99? And the answer that the Zohar is giving us in Parashat Lech Lecha, we have to understand that life is about the process. It's about evolution. We all evolving creatures as individuals and as societies and as humanity in its general definition as basically a society of many, 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 many human beings that have a common past and a mutual future. This is whatever we read over here is all about that, but especially in this parasha. Because what we have in this parasha, we have here Abraham, we meet Abraham in the beginning of the parasha. He is sitting in front of the tent. It's a terribly hot day, and it's 3 days after Abraham is going through his circumcision. So if you know a little bit medicine, on the third day, this is terribly painful, terribly swollen in a very, very, very sensitive location, and it's horribly hot. And why do we need all of these details? So then we see the revelation of the three angels that Abraham does not realize they are angels. He treats them like human beings, and he just goes totally out of his way to welcome those three guests. And then the angels have the message to Abraham that within a year, exactly a year, his wife Sarah is going to have a son, okay, from him. And that's about we are talking about the message of the birth of Isaac. By the way, this parasha is being read on the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah because it says that uh, that day of the revelation and that day later on of the birth of Isaac, that we read it, we can see that later on, is happening basically on Rosh Hashanah, and it's being read every year during the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. We have also the next story is the burning, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and after that we have uh, the birth of Isaac, and then we have the binding of Isaac. Okay, these are the main. Oh, we have also the main events in this parasha. And the question is, what's in it for us? Because that's what's important. We have to study this uh, text for one purpose. This text is delivered to us not to tell us stories about the past. It's not folklore. It's not tradition. It's about today's need of each one of us, the need to grow, to transform, because that's basically the ongoing need of each human being. And let us understand what does it mean, because this is really crucially for being able to withstand all the crises around us, especially this era that we're going through. And the parasha in the Zohar is telling us about those special words, and it's saying that like this. This is how it starts. Rabbi Chia patach, Rabbi Chia opens. הניצנים נראו בארץ ועת הזמיר הגיע וקול התור נשמע בארצנו. It's a book of the Song of Songs, chapter 2. The buds have been seen in the earth. This is the time of the nightingale, and it's also the sound, the voice of the dove is being heard in our country. Okay, but the Zohar says it's all a code. Yeah, it's a very nice song to sing in the beginning of the spring. The birds are being seen, the nightingale is singing. All of that is very nice. But the Zohar said that's a secret about something much, much deeper. הניצנים נראו בארץ. What does it mean the buds have been seen in the land? כד ברא קודשה ברכו על מה, יהב בהרעה כל חילה דתחז אלי. When the Creator created the world, He gave in the earth all the power that it needs. וכל אהבה בהרעה, and everything was there in the earth when it was created. ולהפיקת איבין בעלמא, עד יתברא אדם. However, as we learned in Genesis, in the beginning of Genesis, till Adam has been created, nothing really had been shown. Which means, just a second, we read in Genesis 1 how on the third day of the creation, all the vegetation had been created. The shrubs and the trees and the grass, everything was created. And then about the fifth, and then the fourth and the fifth, we're talking about the solar system and all the stars. And the fifth day, it's all about the beasts and animals and the fishes in the sea. And here in chapter 2, the Zohar repeats the same idea. Before there was Adam, before humanity is being created, there was really nothing. And the earth did not grow anything. כיוון דתברא Adam, and since Adam was created, humanity has been created, כל האתחזי בעלמא, everything, poof, it's like the buds were there, unseen. If, when you live in, either when you live in, a lot of people live in the frozen countries, the countries that are frozen in wintertime. Okay, everything is in the fall, everything is covered with snow and ice, and then The days come of the spring and things are starting to warm up and the sun is coming out and the temperature is rising above freezing point, and suddenly the trees are starting to show buds. And then all kinds of bulbs are starting to sprout from under the frozen ground. And you see buds of different flowers. And everything is starting, and within few weeks, everything is green and blooming and beautiful. In countries like Israel, for instance, the same thing is applies for the summer. During the summer, a lot of the vegetation is dying, getting dried, and then the first rains around this time of the year, the first rains are coming, and then suddenly within very short time, the bulbs are sprouting, and there's a lot of vegetation appearing out of nowhere, and everything becomes green. So where were the buds before the change of seasons? And the answer, they were there, but a human eye could not see it. You couldn't see it, you couldn't understand it because uh, unless you know what to look for. So, so this is basically kind of an example showing that yes, everything was there. The plants were there, the flowers were there. Everything was in a state of buds, which means was waiting for the right time to sprout, to bloom, and to open up. And wow, we have, let's say, uh, you see it in frozen countries, or you see it, let's say, in Israel. There are bulbs that they bloom, they flower just before the rain is coming. And you're asking, where are these flowers coming from? Yeah, they were there all the time. You didn't see that. Unless you know the climate, you know the vegetation, you know they're going to sprout. It's not a surprise. But what we try to understand over here is something that I explained in Parashat Bereshit. There's something very important about understanding reality. Today, for the last century, there's a talk about it in the world of science that you need, and it's very sophisticated, very hard to understand. Human consciousness is needed for the process to take place, which means if there's no human consciousness, is there a creation? Is there the process of evolution? We know that happened before humanity came to the world. Really? Was it really the way we think it was? Ah, a lot of scientists doubt it. The moment you understand the power of human consciousness. And that leads us to a very important uh, chapter in the Zohar of this parasha. In order to understand what is this story about, we're having a story about, this is the Torah, the book of Genesis. It speaks about the creation of the world, the creation of Adam and Eve, the snake, the eating from forbidden fruit. Then we are talking about 10 generations later. We have Noah. Humanity is really going the wrong way. Everything has to be erased. Noah is starting a new line of humanity. And then 10 generations later, Abraham comes to the world. And then humanity is taking another turn. And what has that to tell us? Okay, what we take out of it today, 2024 or 5785, this is very crucial because this understanding this question will help us to understand what's happening to each one of us individually and what's happening to our society, what's happening to the world in general. We are in a very tumultuous time. And as I said in the beginning, we are stressed out, we're really upset because we don't really understand what's going on. on the individual level and in the general level of economy, state, country, every aspect. Who am I? What am I? This is the real question. This is the question we have to answer better than before in order to be able to shift ourselves to the next stage, because it's all about evolution. Evolution of what? It's the evolution of consciousness. And let us read in the Zohar, this parasha, Parashat VaYera, verse 151. Rabbi Yehuda patach, Rabbi Yehuda opened. And what does it mean? Every time they open, it's not they open their mouth, they are opening for us another level of awareness. נודע בשערים בעלה בשבתו עם זקני הארץ. So Rabbi Yehuda is quoting from the book of Proverbs, chapter 31, verse 29. נודע בשערים בעלה. This is in a very famous text. It's called Eshet Chayil, the woman of valor. In every Jewish Shabbat table of Friday night, this is a song that everybody's singing about the woman of valor. Is it praising the lady of the house or praising the presence of the holiness of the spirit of Shabbat? Both are right, but there is a very deep understanding behind this verse. Again, Proverbs 31:23. And it says over there, Noda basharim ba'ala. Her husband is known at the gates. Simple explanation. The woman who is a real woman of valor, her husband has a great status in the public place of the town or the village, because the gates, which means it's what we call today the city square. Okay, now, but what does that mean spiritually? And here comes our answer. בואו ראה, הקדוש ברוך הוא נתעלה בעיקרו. Come and see. The Holy Blessed be He, the creator of the universe. He is of a great, great, precious status. כי הוא גנוז וסתום בהעלה גדולה. He is treasured and not known in a great elevation. לא יש בעולם ולא היה מיום שנברא העולם מי שיוכל לעמוד על החוכמה שלו. There is no one in the world, and there was never in the world anyone who could really figure out the wisdom of the Creator. And therefore, no one can really appreciate, understand the greatness of the wisdom of the Creator. Verse 122. משום שהוא גנוז וסתום, because he's treasured and misunderstood, or not being able, satum means cannot be understood. ונעלה למעלה למעלה, and is elevated above and above. וכל העליונים ותחתונים אינם יכולים להשיגו, and all beings, divine, elevated, and the lower one, of course, cannot figure out, cannot perceive, understand the greatness of the Creator. עד שכולם אומרים, till everybody says, ברוך כבוד השם ממקומו. Till everybody is saying, ברוך כבוד השם ממקומו. This is another important verse that means, blessed is the glory of the God in His place. What is His place? We have no idea. We cannot understand His place because we are not there. התחתונים אומרים שהשכינה היא למעלה. The lower levels know that the divine presence is elevated and above where we are. שכתוב על השמיים כבודו. His glory is above the heavens. That's what we, the lower beings, can understand. But what does it mean above the heavens? Can we really figure that out? והעליונים אומרים שהשכינה היא למטה. And the above beings, the higher beings, they say that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is below. שכתוב על כל הארץ כבודך. As it says, your glory is over the whole earth. עד שכל העליונים והתחתונים אומרים, ברוך כבוד השם במקומו. Till all the beings, above and below, say, blessed is the glory of God from his place. What is his place? We can't really figure it out. משום שלא נודע, ולא היה מי שיכול לעמוד בו. Because we have no knowledge of it, and no one can stand in that place of knowing this question. So what does it mean, נודע בשערים בעלה? What does it mean her husband is known at the gates? Her husband, this is the holy blessed be he, the divine creator. שהוא נודע ומושג לפי מה שכל אחד משער בליבו. And now comes a very important key verse. שהוא נודע ומושג, he is known and perceived to everyone, לפי כל מה שכל אחד משער בליבו, to each person according to the way he can figure it out in his own heart. כפי שיוכל להשיג ברוח החוכמה. According to his capacity to perceive in the spirit of wisdom. ולפי מה שמשער בליבו, כן נודע בליבו. And according to his way to figure it out, according to his perception of every human individual, that's how he knows God in his heart. ומשום זה כתוב נודע בשערים, and that's why it says known at the gates, נודע בשערים. The problem is, English is not made for that. בשערים means in Hebrew gates, but it means also as שיעורים, measurements, שכל אחד משער בליבו. The way you measure God Almighty, the way you measure the Creator in your heart, that is the level of perception of his greatness. And this is very important. We don't really know, and we cannot really know the Creator himself. Why? He is the essence of the creation. He is infinite, and our consciousness is the opposite, very, very finite. Our perception, our thinking, our awareness can think only in units of measurements, בשערים. What's the problem? That means we can think only through definitions. This is human thinking. We need to figure out things according to their size, their beginning, and the end in the reality of time, in the dimensions of time, or in the dimensions of size, length, width, and stuff like this. This is the way we humans think. Can a limited, finite awareness figure out the infinite? Of course not. So, what the Zohar is teaching us over here, that the whole story of the Torah is to teach us the process of evolution of human awareness. This is the most important thing, and this is the only thing that really happens in human history and in the history of every individual. The way you figure out God, this is exactly the way you experience life, which means if you can really define what your life is about, it's all about your relationships with God. Now, let's go back to what are we going through right now. Humanity is going through a huge transformation. It is very scary. Why? The way we figure ourselves out, the way we perceive us, the evolution of our awareness of human beings is going through a very, very hectic revolution. It's the pressure is unprecedented before because everything is happening very, very fast and a lot of wheels are turning and moving in a speed and intensity that is never precedented before. It never happened before. But again, all of those changes in economy, in politics, in human being, in the simple life of every human being, all of that pressure is about the evolution of human awareness. Okay, so during the ancient times, when we're talking about Abraham, Abraham created a huge transformation, revolution in human awareness. But it was very limited to Abraham and few people that he touched. He laid the foundations. Abraham laid the foundations. It continued with the binding of Isaac, his son, and then with the birth of Jacob. They were the forefathers. They were the basic elements of the birth, the rebirth of human awareness. They fought idol worshiping. What was idol worshiping? It was not just a nice, colorful tradition that you can make fantasy movies about it. Oh, it's very interesting mythologies to read. It was a very dark, low era in the history of humanity. Idol worshiping could be defined as a stage of human awareness in which, since you are a mortal and you don't belong to the ruling class, that was a very, very thin layer of the royalty and the people really next to them, along most of human history, the ruling class, they were like semi-gods. And all of those ancient religions were political tools to subjugate humanity in a way of basically creating a state of mind of lack of hope, which means since you're born to the lower class, which was more than 90% of the population, almost 100% of the population. You were a farmer, you are mortal, you deserve nothing, you're just a serf, a slave to the royalty. In this form or another, that lasted till not long ago, till a few centuries ago. The royals, they were anointed by religion, either Christianity, Islam, or other religions all over the world, and which means they were the messengers of God. Whatever they said was the law, and most people, or as I said, more than 90% of the population, simply had no say. They simply had to lay low, obey, and follow. And they had no rights whatsoever. There was no constitution, nothing. They were um, basically subjects. Terrible word, subjects. There were no citizens. They were subjects. They had no rights. Okay? And that lasted for a long time. Even the great monotheistic religions during the Dark Ages, they were dark. And yes, there was a lot of creativity of maybe poetry, whatever, but only the people with the blue blood were part of that. Most of humanity, as I said, more than 95%, even more than that, 99%, were basically farmers, serfs, had no rights for anything. Okay? Some kings were more open and less, but what Abram started 4,000 years ago, that idea of monotheism was a beginning of an evolution of human awareness. The message was that if there is one God, there's nothing but God. Every human being is born with a soul that is a spark of the divine God. And therefore, every human being has the right for happiness, and no one has the right to take it away from him. So Abram comes with this message. Uh, the awareness of humanity at that time was totally foreign to that. And being one, okay, announcing that message, how many people were at that time were really aware to that message? And as we continue to follow history, and the birth of and the birth of the Israelite nation on Mount Sinai. That was the first time that that awareness was given to a whole nation, to a whole society. That was very hard. That was very hard, and that's why we read in the Tanakh later on how the Israelites fell so easily back into idol worshiping. Idol worshiping means you have no rights for anything and you have no responsibility for what's happening to you. Okay? Because the deities, they play with you. And also and we know even today, democracy is not that easy. Democracy means you have to take responsibility. The state is yours. The rules are yours, and you have to take responsibility. Get out of your comfort zone, because if you don't, somebody is going to come into that vacuum that you leave and will take over your rights for property, for happiness, for freedom of speech, everything. Okay, so this is when we are talking about the reading of the Torah, the reading of the five books of Moses, and later on, the other books of the Bible. It's all about the evolution of human awareness, the evolution of human awareness. And basically, when we are talking about what happened in the Dark Ages, so it replaced, like the political religions of the Dark Ages, they replace the uh, the vicious gods with all their stupid games of ego of the Romans and the Greeks and the Egyptians and whatever. All of that was basically engineering your thinking that, that's how the gods are, and that's why the royalty is allowed to play the same games with each other and with you. And it was vicious, horrible games of poisoning each other, fighting about ego and about the power and about the crown. Royalty was a headache because they were raised that they are basically having blue blood, which means they were anointed creatures by the gods, and no one has any right, because if you're trying to dispute the kingdom, you're basically disputing God, because they are the living messengers of God over earth. What happened to religion? people started to realize, the more awareness people started to achieve during the Industrial Revolution, and now people could read, they had to read. In order to be a worker in the factory, you have to read the plans, the instructions, and you have to go to school and you have to read. And there are books and the newspapers, and today you have social media and you have internet and so on, and there's explosion of information and people are waking up. So as people started to wake up in the 18th century, even before, when the print started, or even then, we're talking about 16th century, people are starting to realize how stupid, expensive, and evil is royalty, is the government. They're simply playing with us. So it took a few hundred years till the royal uh, government has been thrown out to the garbage or became like a tourist attraction, but nobody asks them what to do. Nobody cares about them anymore. And the story changed, and also religion that went with the same deal with the royalty was thrown out to the garbage can of history. And you see how, like, the houses of worship around the world are getting more and more empty. Why? People don't follow that anymore. Like, who's like, because selling the God of the Dark Ages, which is the same story of the idol worshiping. There's somebody sitting there, okay? He doesn't like you that much. He likes the powerful. He likes the ruling class, and he doesn't like you to challenge the ruling class and the whole system. And he's very vengeful and he's very kind of not nice. And people don't like that God anymore. So uh, the old religion had to simply perish, and a new one has to surface, because when people, like, got rid of religion and they got rid of God, so a lot of people, they still believe in a kind of God. They feel that there's a need for God and they're looking for that God. And they're trying to reinvent God because humans need, psychologically, biologically, we need that idea of a God. Which God? Humanity has to figure out. And here, this is what the Zohar is saying. Because the real God is beyond our perception, we are the ones who are going through the change and the transformation. So why is it that we study the Zohar? And that's why, the Zohar is saying one of the major answers to our suffering is when we study the Zohar, which means in our era, because the purpose of the study of the Torah and the interpretations, which means the Zohar, is in order to support the evolution of our awareness. So when humanity is starting to realize that there is God and He's infinite and His love is infinite to every human being and every creature, that He's behind the process of evolution. However, the real process of evolution is the process of the evolution of human awareness, which means the most important thing in my life is not the process of studying, achieving a title, and then a status in a cultural, in the economical race of becoming richer and achieving a safer life. This is not valid anymore. Why? Because it doesn't achieve that feeling of safety and tranquility. It doesn't matter. You have the more money you have, the more real estate you have, the more power you have, doesn't make you happier, because this is simply a lie. The real story of human individual is the evolutionary process of awareness. How do we perceive the creator, the creation, and our place in that story. Okay? So let's see how the teaching goes on. Rabbi Shimon continues. We are in verse 154, which means I'm giving here like the Zohar's solution to the ailment of society. Society today is very painful. Why is it very painful? There's there's a Kabbalistic saying, Rabbi Ashlag, the founder of the modern Kabbalistic movement, is teaching us, you cannot give what you don't have. What does it mean? When a human being is happy, really happy, I'm not talking about that moment of excitement because you ate a very expensive meal or you drank a very expensive wine or you got just a very expensive drug, okay? And you had an extreme sport or something like this. No, I'm talking about happiness as a state of mind that is lasting more than a few minutes or few hours, okay? That you feel really good about life, about yourself, about reality, about the creation, about the future. This is what I'm talking about as happiness. When a human being feels happy this way, as a continuous emotional fulfillment, we are very nice to other people. Now, in our experience, it's very hard to find happiness today. Although we are richer than ever, we are healthier than ever, we are more comfortable than ever, physically, we're better than ever in history of humanity, which means we are richer than any other history. It's like the fact that we have an access to a smartphone or a computer, and the biggest kings in the past did not, until a century ago, 50 years ago, the richest people did not have that. 30 years ago, the access to information and knowledge and wisdom and whatever, okay? We're richer than ever. Why is it that we're not happier? Why is it that most in most modern countries, number one plague is depression? Why is it? And the answer is like this. Rabbi Shimon is adding 154, verse 154 in Parashat VaYera in a Sulam commentary of the Zohar. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon is teaching us, נודע בשערים בעלה, same verse, her husband is known, aware in the gates, which means we're talking about the way we measure our awareness. מהו שערים? What are the gates? שאו שערים ראשיכם. Psalms 24:7. Raise your heads to the gates. Okay, that sounds very nice as a song. Sounds is a song. מכוח אלו השערים שמדרגות עליונות, בכוחם נודע הקדוש ברוך הוא. But since we understand that gates, שערים, means also measurement, so we are talking about gates of awareness, which means every time we cross another gate, it means our ability to measure, to figure out, to extend our awareness of the Creator. When that ability is growing or upgraded, we cross another gate. So we are talking about crossing the gates of awareness. It means expanding our awareness, improving it. Okay? From the force of those gates that are the divine levels of awareness, not of God. God is never changing. His bliss is never changing. His love is never changing. God is never judgmental because judgment has nothing to do with God. It has only to do with our perception of the creation of what's happening to us. בכוחם נודע הקדוש ברוך הוא. Through those gates, we can be aware of the presence of God, which means our awareness of the presence of God has nothing to do with God really, but it has to do with our evolutionary process. Humanity is going up the gates. We needed to rebel the old religions because that was a very non-productive awareness. It was an awareness based on fear of questioning, fear. Humanity had to rebel. They they call it the monotheistic religions of the Dark Ages, but that was not monotheistic. That was just an extension of the ancient idol worshiping. Okay? Abraham's teachings, Isaac and Jacob, and later on Mount Sinai, was all about you have to change, you have to question, you have to doubt, because if you don't doubt the gate you are at, how would you move up to the next gate? You have to kill the previous gate in order to give birth to the next gate and another gate. So your mind has to be inquisitive and questioning all the time. And you have to be aware that the way you perceive God right now, if you really do the real work of spiritual growth and change and expanding of your consciousness through study, through meditation, through prayer, through applying that in everyday's life with your relationships. When you do that, whatever the way you experience God right now is going to be obsolete. It's going to be expired one day, sooner or later, and you're going to find yourself in a higher awareness of the purpose of reality. This is the only things that happen. So when we see a world in turmoil, when we see Armageddon happening, World War III, the crash of civilization and the fight of civilizations, it's all about one thing. Every war, great, like World War I, World War II, the Cold War, they put people under a lot of pressure, and we know the necessity is the mother of all invention. When we are under pressure, we need to reinvent ourselves in order to survive. If we don't reinvent ourselves, we're simply being crushed by the pressure and we cease to live, either physically or mentally. We are not involved anymore. We become subjects. ואם לא היו אלו השערים, לא היו יכולים להשיג בו. Without those gates, humans would not have the ability to have any perception of God. And what does it mean? Any perception of God that we have is only part of a process. The process will be finalized when each one of us will reach the highest level in which we will be able to feel the love of God, the presence of God, the presence of His light in everything we do, in everything, in every breath, every thought, every look that we see. We'll see God's creation through everything. When we do that, we get rid of fear. We have awe, but not fear. We have awareness, but not anxiety. We have understanding and growth and faith and trust, but we don't have hate or negativity because, as I said before, you cannot give what you don't have. So when you see people frightened, and you know that fear, you go to any kind of democratic elections today, it's terrible. People vote for candidate A because they hate candidate B and they hate him more than A. They don't do it because they really hope. There's a vision, broad. There's a promise. People know politicians, they lie. They're also motivated by fear and hatred. And you see it everywhere. This must end. We're growing up. We're starting to see that happening in front of our eyes. Why? Because when we see a candidate speaking, a politician, anyone, a scientist, we can see because when somebody becomes very popular, then he starts to be famous. And what does it mean? He talks. And then you see him on TikTok, you see him on Facebook, you see him on the X, you see him on everywhere, all the media. And then people start to be aware he's a human being. Now he's afraid. Now he's manipulating us. And people hate to be manipulated. But now it's so obvious because you can see it so clearly. So evolution is on the go and great things are happening. But what's the problem? The old structures that are still built on foundations that belong to the dark ages, that they belong to the time, the era before the social media, that was based on you don't really know what's going on. And today, you can't keep secret too much. Everything comes out and being revealed. Somebody in some ministry will just simply leak the information, or somebody will break into the computers and leak the information. So, and people see, and people understand, and people start to be aware. So what is there to come to replace the old system? As long as we are not really getting ourselves deeply involved in our own spiritual journey, going up the gates, we will be victims of what's happening around, because that will make us very anxious, very much afraid, and we will be depressed, upset, will be very hostile to other people because we'll be afraid all the time. We won't trust other people till we start, as the prophecies are saying, we will start to create communities that are based on honesty, sharing, loving. Why is Abraham so stressed out when he has a revelation? Abraham is circumcising himself, which means he's manifesting to the uttermost extent his trust in God two times in this parasha. One, the circumcision; the other one, when he goes to sacrifice his son Isaac. And what happens in each time, there's a greatness that is being revealed because there's something of sacrifice with the covenant. You have to sacrifice some ideas. You have to sacrifice the old you, and then it becomes an offering. You become closer to the Creator, and then your mind is changing. And this is horrible to the lower parts of our consciousness. When Abram is finally reaching that awareness of prophetic state of awareness to God, of God, after the third day of his circumcision, it's because the Zohar is explaining he's figuring out things he could not figure ever before. And he has like, Eureka, wow, I'm at the presence of God Almighty. I am aware of realms of awareness, of light and greatness and prophecy and wisdom, like no one before since the sin of Adam. And then he starts to get another, right? He realizes that when all of those ideas are coming through, and you are flooded with intense light to fulfillment, that can kill you easily. And the only way to stop the demise of your life is by getting out of your comfort zone and being there for other people. And that's why the legend is saying that Abraham, during that revelation, prophetic revelation in this parasha, he feels hot. He's going on fire. He's stressed out. There are no guests. Why there are no guests? When there are people to serve, the Zohar is saying, they save your life. When he sees the three angels, God can bring three angels. There are no humans around. It's a hot day, right? Abram gets up. Remember, he's 99 years old. 3 days ago, we had circumcision. He's swollen, he's painful, and he's running like his life is dependent on it. And yes, his life is dependent on it. He realizes achieving awareness of greatness, being in the zone, being feeling high and intensity and serotonins and endorphins, and you're really feeling wow. If you're not going to do something for someone, if you're not going to generate kindness, chasadim, what it's called in the language of the Zohar, if you're not going to generate the energy of kindness for others, service, and appreciation, and simply going out of your comfort zone and being there for others, that power, that godly power of wisdom, it's called the light of wisdom, is going to burn you into ashes. We see the result. Sodom and Gomorrah, they burned to ashes. They had the philosophy, we are individuals and we are rich enough to be busy just indulging ourselves. We'll be happy, excited, we'll enjoy the wine, we'll enjoy life, and we don't want anyone to disturb that. Don't bother me. I'm busy. It's a bad day. Bad day to come to me. I'm high. I'm getting high. Abraham realized that he crosses to the other gate. That when you share with others, when you care for others, even when you are in total pain, especially when in total pain, you generate the power of chasadim. You cross the gate and you realize that the message of God, that the power of God feels not according to God, but according to your perception, which means you want to feel God's love, you want to feel God's mercy, you want to feel God's hug, and you want to feel God's forgiveness. You have to create that gate by yourself. You need to have a community. You need to create a community. You need to create a community that demands from you all the time giving, caring, sharing. And when you create that appreciation for others, loving for others, caring for others unconditionally, that is the covenant. You will feel God's grace and you will be saved. You are your own savior, not God. God's light is a constant. It's endless, it's infinite. You are the ones, you are the one who must climb the gates. And the broader is the love, the greater is the sharing, the bigger is the commitment, the higher is the gate you achieve of appreciating and achieving the greatness of God's love. This is what humanity is going through right now. We have to leave the old God of the Dark Ages, the God of vengeance, the God that he loves only people like me, and he hates all the ones who are wrong, and therefore he will smite and kill all the others, and only people like me will survive the great days. What a stupid idea. If God Almighty is infinite, he loves everyone the same. You can find it in the Zohar, you can find it in the Torah, you can find it in all the commentaries. As what Rabbi Ashlag is saying, whoever feels like this and thinks like that, the Messianic age is about some bodies winning the war with other bodies. What are you talking about? Every human soul it was created by God, so every human soul is supposed to cross all the gates. You were created to be successful. So am I, and everybody around. We are all going through the same journey. The great winning is when we all realize that. It will be painful. We'll have to destroy a lot of demigods and a lot of false gods, false beliefs, but we're heading there. The pain will be great. Why does it say that the Zohar will be Noah's Ark? Because the most intensified journey towards that consciousness is in the Zohar. And when you go through the journey and you start to realize that, you suffer less because your awareness grows bigger and bigger. You cross through the gates, and then the pressure makes you just grow. And then you feel more love. You have more patience for people, even if they are wrong in their opinions. Why are they wrong in their opinions? Because they did their on a lower level in the journey, but they are in the same journey you are. And finally, they will reach where you are, and even higher than that. Because finally, we were all created by the same God, and we were created to be successful. There's no compromise about it. Samuel 2, chapter 14, verse 14. Ki lo idach mimeno nidach. No one will ever be cast away. Everybody is supposed to reach that place. And happy journey for everyone. Be strong and be kind, and you'll be saved. Thank you so much.